McKenna Management Corp. presents our exclusive Merger, Acquisition, and Business Sale Overview from a seller's perspective. How did a smart guy like Ted Turner lose $8 billion in 30 months? That's about a $10 million loss every day for 2.5 years. How did it happen? How could it happen? The short answer is, Mr. Turner was the largest stockholder in Time Warner when it was merged into the dot-com company America Online in 2001. This was the largest merger in American business history and arguably the worst deal in American business history. The root cause of this disaster for Time Warner was that they did not complete a seller's development of a deal foundation, and therefore they didn't understand the deal they approved. A decade after this deal was cut, the surviving company was worth approximately 14% of its pre-deal value. This was a massive disaster for Time Warner and Mr. Turner. And how did the Snapple Beverage Company allow themselves to be sold to the Thomas H. Lee Companies for $135 million, and 2 years later watch, from the distant sidelines, as the Lee Company sold Snapple to Quaker Oats Company for $1,700 million and pick up a $1,565 million profit? How do you think the original Snapple management deal-making team felt? The short answer to these multiple questions is, Snapple didn't properly complete a seller's development of a deal foundation. Therefore, they were totally unaware and unprepared to deal with the expertise of the Lee Company professional dealmakers. Snapple management left over $1.5 billion on the table, no doubt feeling very foolish. And in conjunction with client management, how did a small company like ours broker and coordinate a relatively small $83 million two-phase sale of a regional upstate New York railroad that never turned an operating profit, and in the deal process garner a 200% stock sale premium? The short answer is, we did complete a detailed and comprehensive seller's development of a deal foundation. It was completed preemptively, shelved, and periodically updated in anticipation of a national railroad merger of Conrail with some yet unknown combination of CSX, Norfolk Southern, Canadian National, and/or Canadian Pacific. When CSX and Norfolk Southern eventually joint ventured and acquired Conrail after a vicious and costly bidding war, and then looked to acquire our client, we were ready from the get-go and made our premium deal quickly. When the elephants dance, the ants must be smart, fast, and prepared. So, what is a seller's development of a deal foundation? Well, it's the first of the seller's 5 major segments of deal-making, and probably the most critical segment. And it's foundational and fundamental to the deal-making process, and it consists of 4 foundational subcomponents. These 4 foundational subcomponents are, first, the seller's pre-deal due diligence subcomponent, which is based on our business health checkup program. This copyrighted program was initially developed in 1983 and converted into a comprehensive computer-driven analytical tool in 1997. Our 2009 perfected version can be viewed in its entirety on our profit-improvement.net website at Flash Sales Video and Flash Sales Follow-Up Video. This program, completed in conjunction with client key management, rapidly dissects a company from both subjective and objective perspectives, and when completed, will tend to preempt and disrupt the natural advantage of the buyer's due diligence offensive challenges. Second, the seller's asset value determination subcomponent seems like a logically obvious and basic step in the sale process, doesn't it? However, many sellers like Time Warner, Snapple, and thousands of other sellers inadvertently enter initial discussions and negotiations with limited attention to supportable asset value. Many times these sellers slip into casual negotiations with little awareness of alternate asset value methodology. They then become extremely vulnerable to the prepared and experienced buyer. There are scores and scores of valuation methods that sophisticated buyers may attempt to use to support their value perspective of your business asset value. However, the seller must define its own value and be prepared to defend that value during protracted negotiations. Our favorite seller's defensive valuation method is the income capitalization approach. We like this method because it's transparent, logical, and arguably supportable during the buyer due diligence valuation attack. Third, the seller's preferred method of sale selection subcomponent must also be carefully preconsidered by the seller and its tax and legal advisors prior to any semi-serious discussions with a prospective buyer. An overview of 4 methods of a business sale was presented in a March 2008 Wall Street Journal article, The Art of the Sale, by Arden Dack. Our synopsis of the Art of the Sale article is: an outright sale. There are 2 types of simple outright sales of a business: the asset sale and the stock sale. The asset sale occurs when the corporate assets are sold. The asset sales tend to benefit the buyer because any contingent liability stays with the stockholder sellers. The stock sale occurs when the corporate stock is sold. The stock sale proceeds are then proportionately distributed to the stockholders at closing. Stock sales tend to benefit the seller because any contingent liability travels with the stock to the buyers. Management buyout. This is a direct sale of the stock to an in-place management team. This type of sale usually includes multi-tiered financing. The financing is usually generated by the management buyout team, a bank, an economic development agency, and the asset seller with cash, notes, and/or purchase money mortgages. The financing share is generally spread 10% management buyout team investment from cash and/or personal loan sources, 50% bank from cash with a first lien on the assets of the business, 20% EDA and/or other local government entity with second-tier financing, and 20% invested by the seller in the form of second-tier financing. This type of deal is complicated, with several key actors involved. Many times the sale price is less than an outright sale because the seller is impacted by bank and EDA loan-to-value ratios where the loan amount, not the asset value, is the deal driver. Employee stock option plans. It's an ESOP. The seller creates an independent trust for the benefit of the company. The price of this stock is determined by an independent ESOP valuation company. This ESOP valuation company then holds the stock for the employee owners. When the employees retire, they can, and usually do, sell their stock back to the ESOP. There are advantages and disadvantages for the seller in an ESOP sale. Probably the best advantage is that a seller in the ESOP process who reinvests in U.S. entities may defer capital gain taxes on the sale until liquidating all or part of the equity investment. Perhaps the primary disadvantage is that the value of ESOP share purchases is established by an independent third party and can negatively impact the sale price. The recapitalization method involves the revision of the seller's capital structure by issuing and selling minority blocks of preferred stock or expanding corporate debt to effect a sale. And this is just a start in the seller's preferred method of sale options. Fourth, the seller's negotiation game plan development. In the 1970s, Mr. McKenna was Chief Operating Officer of an industrial real estate development company. During this period, he was heavily involved in the acquisition and/or leasing of over 6 million square feet of warehousing and/or light industrial space. Toward the end of this career phase, he was asked to conduct a negotiation seminar for a client, and he just couldn't do it. His negotiation skills were not formalized, they were instinctive and natural. So there he was. He could negotiate with top companies like IBM, GE, General Motors, and others, but he couldn't actually describe how he did what he did. So he created a negotiation system with a little explanatory language, and eventually gave that seminar for his client, and then copyrighted his system. He has used this confrontation negotiation system for almost 4 decades to actually chart out negotiation game plans in advance for our turnaround and merger acquisition clientele. This system consists of 3 simple parts. First, the chart, which presents the 20 principles of confrontation negotiation in visual form. Second, the basic worksheet, which is the blank form to be completed by the seller team. Third, a typical completed seller's negotiation game plan development model. This is the pre-deal document, which is in place in advance of any negotiation and is always subject to controlled modification during serious negotiation ebb and flow. It simply works. It provides a significant seller advantage, and it rarely misses the acceptable success target range. To enter serious, protracted negotiations without a pre-calculated and detailed negotiation plan is tantamount to flying a plane with a broken gas gauge and no radar. Your odds of a successful flight are dramatically minimized, and you could come down hard. If your company is considering an offering or anticipates being placed in play, then create your seller's development of a deal foundation in advance of any potential buyer contact. Be smart, be fast, and prepared. If you would like to learn about the other 4 sellers' major segments of deal-making and their supporting subcomponents, contact Gerard McKenna at 518-882-9113 at your convenience. May we again suggest that you check out our profit-improvement.net website. Thanks for investing your time with us to learn a little bit about McKenna Management Corps and our unique approach to client merger and acquisition events.